1483, Richard III had his coronation on the 6th of July. Richard III was the youngest surviving brother of Edward IV of England, who had died in the April. Now, Edward should have been, or was technically succeeded by his 12-year-old son, Prince Edward, Prince of Wales. And Richard should have been their Lord Protector, so he would have ruled over a council that was ruling on behalf of the king whilst he was still a minor. Now, plans were supposed to be in place for Edward to be crowned. He had gone to the Tower of London with his younger brother, which was standard for the monarchs that were about to be crowned. They would go to the Tower of London in preparation for their coronation. However, apparently evidence came to light that in fact their father, Edward IV, had been pre-contracted to a lady called Eleanor Butler when he married Elizabeth Woodville, their mother, and therefore that his marriage to Elizabeth Woodville was invalid, and therefore the children illegitimate. Illegitimate children could not inherit. This left Richard as the heir to the throne. By June 1483, there was a petition which had been raised by the residents of London to have Richard crowned their king, and that was followed by an act in Parliament as well to say that he would inherit and he was king and he would be crowned king. And so Richard and his wife had a joint coronation on the 6th of July 1483 at Westminster Abbey. There was only about 2 weeks in which to organise the celebrations, but apparently there was still a big amount of pageantry and crowds came out to try and catch a glimpse of their new king. Now, I think looking back on successions, we, from our nice, comfortable place in the future, we can sort of look back and say, well, the rightful king was... If you were living at that time, I wonder whether actually a boy king was a option that people wanted to go for. This is what they were hoping was the end of the Wars of the Roses. That was still in living memory. Nobody wanted to go, who would want to go back to civil war and strife, which effectively was just a argument between the top nobility in society as to who should be in charge. This wasn't a civil movement for people's rights. In other words, this is who is in charge. And the population, are going to want stability after decades of that. And so if you look at it from that point of view, I think it's not surprising that people got behind Richard III as their new king. Richard ruled for just over 2 years. The Battle of Bosworth was the 22nd of August 1485, and obviously, famously, Richard III died at that battle against Henry Tudor, who became Henry VII. So Richard wasn't really in power for long enough for us to make any sort of total conclusions as to what kind of king he would have been. But just as an example, he managed in his short reign to pass a bill, I think if that's the right word, in Parliament to standardise weights and measures. Now that may seem sort of an admin task maybe, but this is important for trade and business. Richard also set up something called the Court of Requests, which basically enabled poor people who couldn't normally afford to take anyone to court or to defend themselves. They had the opportunity to petition the king for support. It was like a very, very early idea of legal aid. But of course, Richard's story is inevitably entwined with the disappearance of his 2 nephews in the Tower, the princes in the Tower, and what happened to them, and of course the fact that he lost to Henry Tudor on Bosworth battlefield and lost his life, and so was the end of the Plantagenet era.